large areas of VFR weather with no ceiling. And they do see some virga going on. So there's precipitation that's not reaching the ground. I told the controller why I was diverting for turbulence. Hey everybody, welcome back to AeroSafe. My name is Erica Gilbert. I'm a flight instructor and instrument instructor located in Central Kentucky. Here on AeroSafe, I do an analysis of weather targeted for general aviation pilots. The goal is to help you make a more informed go or no-go decision. What we do is we look at general areas of VFR weather, IFR weather, and hazards that may exist within both of those areas. All of this is done to help you make a more informed go or no-go decision and to give you a better idea of what's going on across the country. I'll use aviation products from Flight Service or 1-800-weatherbrief.com to go through this analysis to help delineate what may be a safe area to fly in under certain conditions and what may be an unsafe area to fly in. We're going to get started by looking at the surface analysis chart. This is going to give us a brief overview of what is causing all of the different weather that we are about to look at. It is Wednesday, January 3rd at 3:40 p.m. Eastern. If we start up here in the northeast, looks like we have a couple of different fronts. We have a cold front, a little bit of a trough extending from this low pressure, and we have a stationary front that connects to another low pressure system with a trough, where there are two cold fronts meeting each other. Low pressure over North Carolina, high pressure over northwestern Alabama, and we see quite a bit of precipitation over the southeast. Low pressure in the Gulf with warm front and cold front coming to meet. As we move westerly, that cold front does come all the way down through Arkansas, where it's met on the end by a warm front connected by a low pressure system with a cold front. We see lots of high pressure coming down from Canada, some of that continental polar air, which has brought this cold front down as well. Some stationary front here, lots of low pressures extending down from Montana down to New Mexico. High pressure over Oklahoma. And we see some alternating low and high pressures across the west. Lots of troughs, low pressure over Washington State with troughs. Cold front through Nevada, South California, followed by high pressure. And here in the far west, up near Alaska, we see a warm front and a cold front, potentially meeting to create an occluded front with some low pressure where they meet. So we've got a lot going on, right? There are quite a few different pressure systems and frontal systems. Let's look at how that plays out practically in terms of flight category across the country. Eastern U.S. is largely VFR. We do see some areas that have ceiling. So if we come up into Maine, there is a ceiling overcast at 5,000. We did see a big area of precipitation over Alabama. Let's see what the ceilings look like there. We see overcast at 6,500 in Bessemer, Alabama. Chattanooga scattered at 12,000, broken at 18,000, overcast 27,000. And they do see some virga going on. So there's precipitation that's not reaching the ground. We do see large areas of marginal VFR, followed on the rear end with some low IFR and IFR. St. Cloud, Minnesota here has overcast at 2,600 with a temperature of -2 on the surface. Now, what does that mean for us if it's -2 and there's clouds at 2,600? Below freezing temperature and visible moisture equals freezing, right? Whether that's in the form of frozen precipitation or accumulation of ice on the surface of our aircraft. That would be a no-go situation. In a general aviation light piston aircraft, something without anti-icing or de-icing capabilities, that's a no-go up in there, simply for the fact that structural icing, and we don't have a way to recover from that. Most parts of the West, we see large areas of VFR weather with no ceiling. So calm and clear, right? We've got, maybe not calm. Denver they've got winds gusting up to 23 knots, few clouds at 22,000. Far western part of the U.S., we see it's kind of a similar story to the northern Midwest, right? There's some mixed flight categories going on, some areas of VFR weather, though there are ceilings, some marginal VFR, low IFR, and IFR weather. Pasco, Washington, they have broken clouds at 2200. Temperature is 6 degrees on the surface. Now, if we look at the standard elapse rate, you only have 3,000 feet till you're at freezing, which means if you're in those clouds, very likely you'll be at the freezing level. You'll be within icing. If we go down Central California, we see it is 5 miles of visibility. There is mist scattered at 1600, broken 23, overcast 55, 12 degrees on the surface. Could be safe for an IFR flight. You've got plenty of room below the freezing level to maneuver. But if you're a VFR pilot, the only thing that you could do in Merced right now is pretty much touch and goes. Not looking too great there. If we were to summarize general areas of VFR weather, we see large areas across the eastern coast, large areas of the west, and I guess we can call that the Midwest. And then the northern part of the Midwest is IFR along with the western coast, overall largely IFR. Also down here in Texas, you'd want an instrument rating to be flying around Austin right now, overcast at 1600. While that's technically marginal for the purpose of going on across country, you want to be more than 1,000 feet AGL. So that's an area that would definitely necessitate an instrument rating. Let's now dig into the hazards that could be going on into each of these areas. If we look at the air mats, we'll look at the graphical air mats with the freezing levels and the air mat Zulu to begin. So, just like I said earlier, up in the northeast, it is pretty cold. We've got an air mat there. Bases are 1,000 feet, top is 8,000, and there's a moderate severity for icing. Along this northern part of the Midwest, we see the same thing. Base at 1,000, tops at 8,000. Moderate severity icing. Down here in the southeast, where we saw the precipitation starting off, freezing levels between 5,000 and 10,000, and the top is 22,000, flight level 220. Severity is moderate icing. So there's a little bit more going on there that we're about to talk about. But if we were to take the information in isolation that we have, which is relatively high ceilings down there, and a freezing level between 5,000 and 10,000, there's potential with just those factors that it could be safe. But there's a little more going on down there we'll talk about here shortly. Moderate severity icing in a general aviation aircraft without anti-icing or de-icing capability it's a death sentence. It's you do not want to do that. You want to stay out of those areas. Now in the far west, similar story. Freezing level between the surface and 7,000. That is Nevada and up. And tops at 18,000 with moderate severity. And along the far west coast, along the seaboard there, the freezing levels between 4,000 and 7,000. Tops of the icing air mat are at 18,000. Severity is moderate. The only one that begins at a high enough altitude that you could fly under it and remain clear of icing is this one down in the southeast. However, like I said, there's a little more going on. So we're going to look at the segments. Oh, and the tango. So we see over here, we see a low-level turbulence, moderate severity from the base to 18,000. Now, me personally, if I have a choice, I'm not going to fly in an air mat for turbulence. I have done it before. and it was incredibly uncomfortable, and I diverted. I told the controller why I was diverting for turbulence. 10 to 15 minutes after I landed for the diversion, what was an airmet then became a SIGMET. I'm not willing to fly into a moderate severity airmet in a small piston aircraft. It's not something that I want to put myself or my passengers through. We do also see some high level turbulence. Airmets, they start at 18,000. Along the west coast, pretty similar stuff going on here. We see a low level turbulence airmet that goes from Nevada down to Southern California, and then a high level turbulent airmet from 18,000 to 37,000. When we take into account that there's some convective activity, there's low level turbulence, and there's icing at 5,000 feet, that says that there's a lot of instability in that southeast area, and that conditions are not going to be really trending to be more positive in the short term. That area where there was all that precipitation in Alabama, I'd want to stay away from that. Okay, let's look at the winds aloft chart to help you with your understanding of fuel planning and your ground speed and your time to destination on your flight. A counterclockwise rotation here coming down Minnesota, across Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, and then it kind of peters out in terms of the northerly part of it. What does that mean? There's likely a low pressure system just over the Great Lakes. For large parts of the area, at 5,000 feet, the wind is either northerly or westerly. So keep that in mind if you are flying to the west or the north. For large areas in the country, you're going to have a headwind. So be sure to be very mindful of that when you're calculating your time and fuel burn. Let's spend some time looking now at the surface prognostic charts. Things are going to be looking a little bit different than they are now. So that high pressure that was up over Canada has now kind of become one system they're anticipating and has moved farther down and east. So we can anticipate that tomorrow or Thursday there's going to be large areas of the Midwest that are going to be pretty calm, clear, and beautiful days. We do see a high likelihood of some wintry precipitation over the Northeast, and we also see that that kind of convective activity has moved out of the Southeast and down towards the lower tip of Florida. This low pressure system that was over the southern tip of Nevada seems to have increased in strength. That precipitation will be frozen where the temperature supports frozen precipitation, and then it will be liquid where it's a little warmer. We see a stationary front across the west moving into the Midwest with low pressure and some high pressure. An occluded front up in the far northwest, as we talked about, coming down and bringing some yucky stuff. If we look at the low-level significant prog chart for 24 hours from now, so that's going to be Thursday afternoon, we see those same areas of IFR pretty much. We've got northwest, we've got central U.S., and Texas, South Georgia, and Florida. All those areas, again, have the marginal VFR bubble around it, and they pretty much all still have some turbulence going on. So it looks like tomorrow's going to be even a little bit less favorable. Tomorrow's probably not going to be a great day for flying for most people. If we look at the flight category for tomorrow, mid-morning, 1500 Zulu, we see there are definitely more station reporting clouds, whether it's a full ceiling or some portion of sky coverage. We see a greater mix of some VFR, low IFR, marginal VFR, and overall I think it looks a little less favorable. So for today, areas that I would avoid as a VFR pilot would be the North, Midwest, the far west, and over Texas. If we were looking at areas as an IFR pilot that I would avoid, it's honestly the same. If it were not so cold, it wouldn't be inherently an unsafe situation. There's nothing causing that bad weather that shows convective activity or bad turbulence or anything along those lines. But because light general aviation aircraft, no anti-icing or de-icing equipment, that would definitely be a no-go situation. Along with the far northeast. Now, if you're able to stay out of a cloud, that's fine. We have that mountain obscuration air met, which means you can't see the mountains. And if you can't see the mountains, you can't avoid the mountains. Same thing up here in the northwest. We got a lot of mountain obscuration, and then we've got a pretty low freezing level as well. So those areas would all be pretty much no-goes for me. For the most part, many of the VFR areas look totally fine, except for the southeast, where we do have some of that convective activity going on. Thanks so much for tuning in. My next video should be out on Sunday. If you're interested in getting an AeroSafe sticker, I'd like for you to leave a comment below about your process and preferred products for an aviation weather briefing. Do you use ForeFlight? Do you use SkyVector? Maybe Garmin Pilot? Do you call a briefer? Do you call your favorite flight instructor and have them help walk you through a weather brief? Let me know your process below and I'll reach out and send you a sticker. I look forward to looking at the weather with you in the future. Bye.